Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1.
The thinking atheist. It's not a person. It's a symbol. An idea.
The population of atheists in this country is going through the roof.
Rejecting faith. Pursuing knowledge. Challenging the sacred.
If I tell the truth, it's because I tell the truth. Not because I put my hand on a book and made a wish.
And working together for a more rational world.
Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way.
Assume nothing. Question everything. And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Hosted by Seth Andrews.
I've been having a lot of these conversations lately about Orwellian shades of the United States. You know, this sort of disinformation campaign that we see from the highest office. Don't trust your eyes and ears. Trust the dear leader, right? That's the vibe that we're seeing. George Orwell, arguably best known for writing 1984 and Animal Farm, sharp and intelligent and often terrifying commentaries about power, oppression, brainwashing, totalitarian regimes, how they happen, what they do, how they operate. I've been learning a lot about George Orwell, the man, in a series at the Great Courses Plus. It's called George Orwell, A Sage for All Seasons. It's taught by Dr. Michael Sheldon. He's authored a biography, an authorized biography on Orwell. Really brings George Orwell to life. It is such an education. I hugely recommend it. Or if you are interested in other things, there are thousands of lectures on subjects relating to history, science, music, travel, leisure, so much more, streaming right to your device and via the Great Courses Plus app. I know you're going to love the Great Courses Plus. Do not wait any longer. Now's the perfect time to sign up and start exploring with your free trial at thegreatcoursesplus.com/Seth. Remember, thegreatcoursesplus.com/Seth. It was, I think, a few months ago, I had a caller on the broadcast. His name is Patrick. And he had mentioned that he was engaged to someone who was not an atheist, was not agnostic, who was a God believer in some way. And I'm going to get into that. And so they're sort of navigating this journey. Like, what's our life going to look like? Are we compatible? How do we get through our concerns, you know? And I asked if his fiance would ever be interested in joining us for a conversation. Now, I want to throw this out at the beginning, and I'll say this to you, Christabella, that we are recording in advance. This is not a live broadcast. There are no phone calls. I don't interview by ambush. I'm not trying to set anybody up. I'm just interested and curious, and I just wanted to talk. Mm-hmm. And you had expressed interest along with Patrick in recording this in the hopes that maybe it becomes something that's interesting to an audience. But you got full veto power, okay? So, that fair?
Yeah.
Do I call you Krista or Christabella? Which do you prefer?
It's up to you. I just like to use my full name because it's something that most people have never heard. But
it sounds like a song. Sounds like something I'd hear in Phantom of the Opera. It's very regal and sounds like a story. I'll stick with Christabella. Does that work for you?
Okay.
So how did you guys meet? How did this encounter happen?
We met in high school in choir. I thought he was a complete weirdo, and he kept hugging me like every day for a whole year.
Consensually.
Yeah. And then we
he's choir. Like, come here, you. I just got to give you a hug.
Yeah.
And then our choir trip took our choir group took a trip to Puerto Rico for a choir tour, and before that point we had just picked on each other, called each other names, joking around, and we actually were able to sit down and have a conversation to get to know each other. And I wasn't looking. I was a senior, and it was April, so I was going to graduate in a couple months. I was like, I'm not looking for anything. So he did ask me out a few times, and I denied him 3 or 4 times.
Oh, rejected, denied. Yeah. But obviously, at some point, you said, "Yeah, hey."
Yeah. Obviously, I was
Okay,
like, well, let's just see what happens.
It was my constant nagging that got it through.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where were you at, and where was he at in terms of God belief? Did that conversation happen before things got serious?
I don't think that really happened until I started college. I know, like, I was still very firm in my beliefs, like very strong.
So you have always been, would you call yourself a devout Christian? You believe in the Bible? You believe in a literal Jesus, God, etc.?
I would definitely say, like, in high school, like, up until, see, now, right now, I'm, like, in a weird, like a different spot. Before I started college, I'd say I was very, like, devout in the sense that I believed in God, I believed in the Bible, I believed, like, all of that was truth, and that's how, like, the world was. And I think definitely, like, that made me a little blinded to, like, seeing others as people. Talking with some of my friends from high school, like, I have a couple of friends who came out as bisexual, and then also a friend that is gay, and I know that they have both, like, expressed to me over the past few years that they were afraid to, like, tell me because they thought that I was going to judge them because I was so strong in my beliefs. When I went to a private Christian university just because going to public school, I was like, I want to go somewhere where people believe what I believe, and I'm not going to hear people swearing all the time and all this other stuff, because I was just, like, sick of it from public school. And I started college, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to use this as a time to step out of, like, what I grew up believing and what my parents taught me and figure out what I believe for myself and how that plays a part in my life. And I think taking, like, that step to say, like, what do I actually believe? Like, what are, like, my values? Like, what are things that I'm going to take for truth? And, like, how are we going to use that? How am I going to use that, like, in the world? I'm also a social worker, so, like, the values of social work and kind of what it means to be a good social worker don't, I guess, entirely line up with values that are taught in Christianity. So I'm kind of in a spot where I'm like, well, my career is more important than my faith right now, and trying to figure out how does that work, especially with a lot of the racial tension that's going on. I know, like, I'm definitely one that's very, like, we need to talk about it. People need to learn, but listening to the church I grew up going to and, like, their sermons, they don't say anything about it. They don't mention anything that's been going on. I was like, why not? So for me, I'm like, that's a problem. Like, you can't change. You can't, like, step out of those traditional values if you're not willing to, like, talk about hard things that come up in the world and figure out what do I need to do to be an active part of that.
Patrick, I can see why you fell for her.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
First of all, I have to toss this out just because I want to be the fly in the ointment. But those people who think that swear words and booze and partying and sex don't happen at religious universities are completely, like, you can speak to it firsthand. It happens just as much. They just have to get a lot more creative when they do it. Would you agree, Christabella?
Yeah.
That reminds me, there's a story that actually her mom told us that the school actually had a running brothel at one point.
That was like 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
And then it got found out, and everyone just got expelled and everything. But it happened.
Yeah.
It's awesome. That story just made my day. I don't know why it made my day, but it made my day. Now, Patrick, you and I have spoken a little bit, but I mean, you've sort of sampled at the buffet of belief, right? You were born into a Methodist family. Were you a Bible believer in the early days? Yeah,
I mean, looking back, the early days, I had questions too. And I don't think I'd like to think that I never really just believed. I went and,
Don't worry about the notifications on your computer. They happen occasionally, and I heard them when we were setting up the conversation. We'll just let those ride. It's all good.
Okay. I remember in Sunday school, there was always, Noah's flood. There's all two of every animal, and Adam and Eve, and we watched Veggie Tales a lot. We got candy a lot, so we actually wanted to go. That was
hang on, hold on. Let me make sure I understand. They gave you candy for going to church?
They had every once in a while they'd have snacks and candy or treats for the kids.
Okay, so it was an added attraction. Like for the kids that come, you may get something good when you're here. We may bring out the sweets and treats and toys and fun stuff.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Yep. But I remember really questioning things at confirmation because they had this video that was, I have to believe it was straight out of Ken Ham's notebook. There were dinosaurs in the garden, and they were just big lizards that lived for a long time. And so that's, lizards never stop growing, so that's how they got so big. And there's no death in the garden, so that's how, you get people that were 500 years old. And the dinosaurs were on the ark and everything. I by this time I was already 16, 17. I was like, this can't be at all true.
So you're drifting, right? You drift out. You said you were dating somebody with Catholic, so you sort of dabbled in Catholicism, and then you end up doing Wicca. In a nutshell, can we talk about Wicca? What's that about?
There's a lot of different sects to it, but in a nutshell, the one that I was practicing was love everybody, don't hate anyone, love nature. Whatever you throw out into the world, you get back times 3. So if it really is something that made you want to be as nice as possible to everyone because you believed that if you put negativity out, you're going to get a whole lot of negativity back. But if you put positivity out, you'll get a whole lot of positivity back. And besides the magical spells, crystals type stuff, I personally don't see anything super wrong with it now because it's a hell of a lot better than what I was brought up.
No, I get it. It's almost like a Halloween-y kind of Buddhism. I'm going to take a whole lot of hell from Wiccans for saying it. But I get it. At least it's a more humanistic approach to other people, kind of cause and effect, do good in the world kind of thing. Yep. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. So was he doing this when you met him, Christabella? Was he like, hi, I'm Patrick, I'm Wiccan? Did you know?
Well, he wasn't that straightforward. I did know. I didn't take it super seriously because I'm it's probably just a phase. I didn't really think that it was I don't know.
All right. So the Christianity in you did not wig out at the eye because Christians align Wicca straight up with the devil. Patrick can attest to that, right? You might as well it's just like a satanic orgy in hell is what Wicca is. But you didn't have that perspective.
Well, I'd say I was a little nervous, had a little bit of that those thoughts, but Patrick was let me show you what I'm actually doing, and I just thought it was super weird, and I was whatever, I'm not even gonna pay attention to it. And then obviously it didn't stick, so I was
So you determine the boundaries here, okay, Christabella, but I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
What state were you born in?
Massachusetts.
Okay. And what was the religion of your mother and father?
My mom grew up a Christian. She is a pastor's daughter. So her family is very traditional, Christian. My dad did not. He grew up going to church. His parents were youth pastors, but their view of religion, he didn't go to church his whole life. It wasn't every week, always pray, all these things. My mom, it was his parents' perspective is like, oh, well, we were youth pastors for a few years. Like, we served our time. We did our time. We don't need to go anymore. So he didn't really grow up, like, in a strong faith. It was more of just like, if you want to go, you can go.
So he was a God believer, but probably in a more passive sense. Would that be fair?
I'd say he saw, like, religion as a whole in, like, a passive sense. I think when they met, like, he didn't believe, but I think that's just because, like, he didn't grow up with any religious background.
How much of your mother's faith echoed into you? I mean, have you reverse engineered that when you think about the fact that, well, me as a Christian, where'd that come from? Have you examined sort of the echo, the parental effect when it comes to your own mind?
I think it's definitely been more so from my mom, just because I know my dad he believes now, and they both are very involved in church. I know my dad's a little more laid back, and I think that's just because of, like, his upbringing and, like, his experiences and things. And my mom's always been a good, strong, like, devout Christian. Like, everything about Christianity, everything about the Bible's true. That's the way to live life. Like, God is real. God is your savior. All that stuff. So I think a lot of that came from my mom. And so it's now looking at, like, well, I guess in a sense, like, what do I want to keep? What do I want to leave behind? The school I went to, even though it was a Christian university, did a very good job of forcing the students to ask questions. And one of the classes I took was, like, a big Bible, like, exegesis class. And it was about learning how to interpret the Bible. And I think if I had had a different professor, the class would have gone completely differently. But this professor I had he was really cool. Like, he swore in class. Like, he was sarcastic. Teachers like that are my favorite just because they're so real and, like, blunt. And I'm like, thank you.
Oh, hang on. Hold on. All right. So the college that had the brothel,
yes,
years ago, but it had the brothel, had a Christian professor who used swear words in his lectures.
Yeah, I had a couple of professors like that.
I'm a little stunned. It just seems all right, but I'm taking the journey with you. Again, these aren't gotcha questions. This is just us talking, okay?
Yeah.
Had you been born in, say, Yemen or Saudi Arabia with a Muslim mother who believed the Quran devoutly, do you think you would still be a flavor of Christian, or do you think you would have been a Muslim?
That is a great question. I think probably would have, I mean, if we're saying, like, hypothetically, like, I was born in Yemen, I'm Muslim, I think I probably would have stayed Muslim just because I know in the Middle East, like, religion is a huge part of the culture, and it's very central. And, if you stray away from that, you're pretty much like an outcast.
I got you. There's a lot of that in Christianity in the States, too. Trust me, I'm an atheist activist. I see it. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to draw a circle around the phenomenon of what I call inherited belief. So if we are on a quest for what is true, how much of our assumed truth came from the people who also taught us to look both ways before we cross the streets, don't talk to strangers, how to live life safely, how to function, who provided our needs, put shelter, security, a roof over our heads, sent us in to be educated. We trust these guardian figures to protect us and teach us and do right. How many times as children did we look at our parents and say, well, they're the adult, they know.
Yeah.
So when they tell us that it's dangerous to get into a stranger's car, don't do it. And they also tell us the Bible is absolutely true. We're often receiving that information sort of on the same wavelength. Does that track? Does that make sense? Would you agree, disagree?
Yeah, I think I agree. It's definitely like religion's influenced by like how you grew up, what your parents taught you.
Yeah.
And I think my perspective is like once you get to a certain age, it's kind of up to you on how much you keep letting that influence you.
Does mom know that you're sort of a Christian light at this point? I mean, you've walked away from specific scriptures and edicts and commands in the Bible, you just decided, I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to condemn the homosexual. I'm not going to do this. I'm now selecting the parts of the Bible that are congruent with my value system. Would that be an accurate way to say where you're at right now? I mean,
yeah, I think that's accurate, and it's still kind of like I don't really fully know kind of like how my values align with like what's taught in the Bible and kind of how to like adopt those into society. I'm still like working through that, but to answer the question of like if my mom knows, the answer would I'm not sure. I don't think so. I haven't directly like looked at my parents and been like, so I don't really feel like going to church. I don't feel like it's the right thing for me right now. I'm trying to figure out what I believe for myself. I think if I was to do that, they'd probably have a little heyday and be like, what are you talking about?
And Christabella, this is a public conversation we're having. I worry a little bit that this somehow filters back to mom.
Yeah.
And I think when you have that conversation, it needs to be your way, your timing, your terms.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, are you okay with us continuing this discussion? Because I don't want you to get ambushed if for some reason, the fates align and you end up on her radar prematurely. Are we okay?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, would you like send it to us to like look at once before?
I will send, again, this was pre-recorded. I will send the entire thing to you for review. You have total veto power. If this does release, it means you have agreed and you're good.
Mm-hmm.
Fair?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Patrick, I know this is a subjective question, but if she is drifting away from fundamentalism, are you going to take the blame for that? Because you're a scapegoat, right? I mean, oh yeah, once you got together with Patrick, now all the dominoes started to fall. It's his fault. Is there some concern there?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I follow a bunch of different atheist pages on Facebook, and I normally share a lot of stuff as well, and so I've gotten some flack for that.
So you're already on their radar.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yep. And the funny thing is, I was on their radar before the story I told you happened. Before we went to that
before
cookout.
The friend cornered you and grabbed you and prayed over you in that.
Yep. And that's where I think it's a small church, and that's where I think word got around because they were telling other people, maybe, because he's not friends with me. The guy who stopped me wasn't friends with me on Facebook. I wasn't posting stuff at that time, but he still knew.
Yeah.
I mean, so you guys get engaged. I mean, what do they think? I mean, either one of you, are they like, oh, God, here we go? Or do they care or what?
I know from like my family's like most of what I hear about comes from my mom or my grandparents, my mom's parents. I know because of some of the things he does post. Like we talk about what he posts every once in a while, and he'll ask me like, "Is this okay? Do you see anything wrong with it?" And I know I've gotten calls from family, and they're like, "We just want to make sure, like, that you're okay, and we want to make sure that you're going to be supported in like your faith journey. And we're just worried because of what Patrick posts and all these other things." And I'm like, okay. I'm like, we talk about what he posts, and some things I have asked him to, since you can select like who sees what on Facebook for some things, like I do ask him just to do that, because I know that my family's going to say something, and I don't want to be put in the middle of it, but I also don't want that to influence their perspective of him, just because we live in Minnesota now. All my extended family still lives in Massachusetts. And so when you're 1,500 miles away and they've only met him once, they really have like Facebook to go off of and build the like judgment of him on. And especially like my mom's parents who are very religious, when they see things that he posts, I know that for them that's like a huge red flag. But obviously they don't spend as much time as I do with him. They don't know him like I do. And I think the other thing people don't really understand about our relationship is we talk about it a lot, and he's always the one to like start the conversation. He's like, where are you at with this? What do you think about this? And I'm like, can we talk about it later?
He's kind of an activist, right? He wants to get in there. And I mean, I know what that's like. Can either of you, no pressure, can either of you think of an example of something that he posted where you were like, hey, Patrick, can you set this to friends only or private? Or is there a post that comes to mind that gave you pause?
I know like when like Gay Pride Month started, I didn't know about this until like my grandma called me about it. He had posted a picture of gay Jesus, gay Muhammad like kissing. Like if I knew he was going to post something like that, I would have just asked him to be like, hey, you want to just like make sure my family can't see that because they're going to have an issue with it. And there was another post around Christmas time about all religions like loving everyone. I don't really exactly remember what it was, but I know like my grandpa had like made a comment about it or like posted about it. And so things like that too. I was like, can we just, I know it's going to cause rifts.
You're trying to avoid conflict. I understand.
Yeah.
And I also get why he likes to roast the sacred cows. I don't know about you, Patrick, but when I left the faith and I finally got over my fear of hell, Jesus humor became a lot funnier. Like when you do jokes that involve Jesus, for me, I find not only is it funnier, but it's kind of a liberation exercise because I was afraid of judgment and hell and blasphemy, the unforgivable sin. I couldn't be rescued from that. I would be tormented forever. But once you finally get over that hump, then it becomes a way of saying, I'm not afraid anymore. There's some utility in that. Does that drive you, at least partially, when you post things like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think for the longest time, especially with high school, I got made fun of, bullied, things like that. And so I always believed what I wanted to believe and have my opinions on things, but I kept it to myself. But within like the past year or so, I've really just come to terms with I got one shot and I want to be who I am and I want to surround myself with people who care about me for who I am and don't, they're okay if I'm not a Christian. They're okay if I'm, if my stance on gay marriage is hell yeah, do it. It's wonderful. I want people who share that to be around me and people who don't to at least try to see it from my perspective.
Christabella, you then see him as a person first, not a label, not a religious follower, but you see Patrick in 3 dimensions. Would that be fair?
Yeah, because of how I grew up, I think it took time to get there. I know the first couple of years that we dated, we fought a lot about religion. And I think it's because he wasn't really sure what he believed, and I was still strong in what I believed, and we were both trying to like make the other one believe what we believed and trying to force the other one to go in one direction. I think now we both accepted that we can't change the other one. I don't want to change him. I like him the way he is. So
let me give you some encouragement, Christabella.
Mm-hmm.
I am in a relationship with someone who is not an atheist. We have our moments, right? Because not only am I an atheist, but I'm an atheist activist. And it ain't always easy because many times I think we just want to shake each other. Like, don't you see what I'm trying to show you? It's right here in black and white in front of your face. We've had those times when we've wondered, are we really compatible? Are we going to make it? We've had the valley. But at the end of the day, I think we have done what you two are doing. And we look past the label and disagreements on a specific key issue and ask ourselves the question of, relatively speaking, is the rest of our life so good that we wouldn't want to be without the other person? And for us, the answer is yes. I sense that answer is yes with you two, right?
Yeah.
What do you love about Patrick? I mean, come on, you got to describe him to me over coffee. And I haven't yet met the guy. Tell me about Patrick. As a person, in your view, what attracted you?
He has a very good heart, and he's willing to like help people when they don't ask for it. He has a lot of respect for veterans, which I grew up in a family where, like, you know, it wasn't super acknowledged, but I know when we go out, like, if he sees someone, he'll go up to them and be like, thank you for your service. And that's something that I wasn't like used to. So that's really cool to see. He also comes from a family where they talk about everything. And in my family, we don't. So that's been nice to have someone that's like, we need to talk about this. We can't just like push it under the rug and forget about it. And he's really funny. When we do have like our arguments, I know half the time, like I try not to look at him, because when I look at him, I just like smile and the whole thing's over. I want it to keep going.
I want to be mad at him, damn it, and he's making it nearly impossible to do so.
Yeah.
What you are describing then is goodness beyond any idea of God's.
Mm-hmm.
You see him as goodness. He's a moral person. He tells the truth. He wants good things. He supports other people. He's being true to himself. He's communicating where he's at, when he's at, why he's at. Yeah. And all of this is happening far outside of any single religion or God belief. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Would you also agree that he's on a journey, right? His life is fluid. All of our lives, I think, most of our lives, I think, are fluid.
Yeah.
But have you seen him? He's a person who is sort of navigating this life on his own terms to try to figure out what's real. You think that's fair?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I see the same thing when I look at you. I see somebody who is on a journey, right? We don't want to remain the same. Because if you just stay in one place, you're regressing. I really think if you're not moving, you are just simply regressing. So I see you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I see you and I see somebody who's sort of tapping on the glass. Is that right? Do I agree with this? Does this line up with my value system? Do the labels they throw out at me or my fiance or whatever, do they stick? Do I want this for me or do I not want this for me? You are doing life, but you're doing it on your own terms. You're not just taking somebody else's word for it. I think that's freaking amazing. And it's not nearly common enough with people who have been sort of told what to believe. You were told what to believe at one time in your life. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And despite the fact that they said, okay, here's what you think, they probably said, here's how you should do church, what kind of church you should go to. Did they even tell you how you should vote?
No, I know my mom's definitely like, you should vote, but I'm like, I don't really know who to vote for, so I don't want to like make a bad decision. She's like, well,
okay, all right. So she's supportive of that, but so she didn't say these are your values and you will live those values even politically. She hasn't done that.
No.
Well, that's good. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Just understand, I'm looking at you, and we just met. But I look at you as somebody who is what they call doxastically open, meaning that you are not a closed system who has said, I don't care what you say, I'll never change my mind, I'll never alter my thinking, I'll never, ever change. And instead, I think you're going around going, all right, where am I? What does this look like? What are my values? What do I think and why do I think it? That's massive. It's just an amazing place to be. On top of that, unlike the Bible, unlike all of the major fundamental Christian denominations, you are in a mode of acceptance. You've accepted Patrick. You accept your non-heterosexual friends. You love people. You're doing social work. You're doing social work, helping disadvantaged people across the spectrum. Mm-hmm. I look at you and I think if only more quote unquote Christians were like you, because you are, in my opinion, don't take this wrong, a humanist. You are about human beings.
Yeah,
Does that make you uncomfortable at all that I say that?
No, because Patrick's been saying that the last year and a half.
He sees you. He sees you.
Yeah.
All I'm asking, I think, as we come to the end of this little call that we've had here, is this. I would like to see you live a life without fear. Now, I don't sense a lot of fear in you, but I know that religious belief often, you don't approach it as an either or. Many people take steps. So you go from the Bible's absolutely true, there is a heaven, there is a hell, and then you step away and you say, well, the Bible's true, but I don't hold to the verses that say you should hate other people for being gay. And then you take another step and you say, well, some of the Bible is true, but some of it may be metaphor. And then you take another step and you say, well, I don't really believe the Bible, but, it's a book that's got some good lessons in it. There's some things we can grab. Jesus had some good teachings. And then you take another step and you say, well, I'm a Christian, but I don't really hold to the Bible. I have a personal God, a personal Jesus. Some people then take another step and they say, well, there's a God somewhere out there. I believe there's a God. What are the next steps? The next steps are the scary ones. What if there may not be a supernatural agent out there? What if I may not live forever? What if there is no evidence for heaven or hell? What if this is it? What if I've been wrong about these key things? And this is a scary spot. And a lot of people, I think, end up right here. And if that's where you, for whatever reason, I'm not saying you're there, but if you end up there, I get you and I understand it. I would like you, though, to approach the harder questions about, is there any evidence for it? And should I hold on to it? I'd like to see you try to approach those without fear and to analyze them based on, is there any evidence to believe it? As my friend Aaron Ra likes to say, is it not demonstrably true or is it demonstrably not true? Meaning, is there any evidence for it? No. Or has it been totally debunked? Yes. These remain important questions. So on your journey, as you're sort of stepping around Christianity, deciding what flavor of faith you have, if you get to the point where you're like, is faith real? Is the religion real? Those questions, I think, have merit. I'd like to see you ask them without fear. And I would love for you to live an authentic life. And if that means you're a religious person, cool, as long as it's on your terms. And if you come to a point where you're like, you know what, I don't need it, I don't want it, I don't see any reason to believe it, and you make that break, that's amazing too, because you are being true to yourself, living an authentic life. And any God who existed worthy of our allegiance and worship would be patting you on the back and high-fiving you for trying to be honest with yourself and others. Does all that make sense? And do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not saying that in any kind of condescending way. Trust me, I've been on a journey in my own life and my journey continues. But in your own journey, let's try to figure it out. And I think that means always asking questions. And if the answer is, I don't know, then the answer is, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And let's try to go figure it out. Let's pursue other things that maybe we can know. But always keep asking the questions. And I'd say the same thing to Patrick as well. Fair enough, guys?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have any other thoughts before we wrap it up here? Anything that we missed that you'd like to toss out? Patrick, I've been talking to Christabella for a while. You've just been sitting there patiently. Do you have, a final word or thoughts about all this?
I don't really have a whole lot with this, with our stories. I mean, I guess the only other thing I would personally say is that when it was me going through everything that you said, where it's, first you say, oh, there is a God, and then you say, oh, then you say this, and then you say that. That's what happened. That's exactly what I went through.
Let me toss this out too. I hate to interrupt you, but I'm a host and I do that because I'm rude. Christabella, he did not choose to doubt his faith. He didn't wake up one day and say, today I would like to walk away from everything I was taught as a child.
Yeah.
I didn't choose to have doubts and confusion. That was one of the most traumatizing and painful times in my life. I couldn't sleep at night. My gut was in a knot. I was worried about losing my family and my friends. And I didn't choose to have doubts. I didn't pick this. I didn't choose to be a non-believer in God's, okay? I think Patrick may be the same way. Just know that it's not like, oh, he's in rebellion. He just wants to say, screw it, and make my life complicated and piss off my parents, etc. He didn't choose that. I think he's just trying to admit it out loud, what he's really going through. You think that's fair?
Yeah, definitely. And to add to that, I'm starting to understand that better, especially planning our wedding. I always grew up, I was like, I'm going to have a Christian wedding. I'm going to marry a Christian guy. He's not a Christian. I don't consider myself a strongly devout Christian anymore. And it's something that I'm like, this is totally not what I thought it was going to be. But, I'm okay with that.
Because you see him as a human being, someone you want to do life with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nobody else gets to tell you what your relationship should look like. Right?
Yeah.
I don't let anybody, Natalie and I don't let anybody else tell us what we are or who we are. So, if things get sticky, despite your differences theologically and otherwise, I would encourage you, I'm not a relationship counselor, but I'm just a guy who's sort of been down the road.
Yeah.
If you see people tapping on the glass telling you what your love and life should look like, because I think you have to draw some boundaries and remember that that's up to you. Okay? Totally up to you. You guys decide that. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Definitely.
And it's funny too, because throughout the entire first part of our relationship, she was always saying, I was always like, well, I'm a Wiccan. Are you okay with that? Are you sure? Because of the past, religious stuff. And she's like, you're not an atheist, so that's good. You're not, as long as you're not an atheist.
And the plot thickens.
Yeah, and then so it was really hard for me to actually quote unquote come out as an atheist. And once I did, locked out of the room.
Yeah, that was a hard night.
There was yelling, there was, total shunning. And then the next day or that night, I think it was the next day, it all pretty much went away.
I get her frustration. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'm a communicator. Let me see if I'm reflecting what you were thinking, Christabella. You were probably feeling ambushed, right? This ain't the deal I made. I fell in love with a guy who at least shared some sort of belief in spiritual things. Hell, if I'd have known there was an atheist, I feel totally ambushed. Is that kind of what was going on in your skull at the time?
Yeah, I'd say so.
But he didn't choose atheism. He just realized, God, I don't believe in a God. The label for that is atheist. And he was honest with you about him. I'm amazed that you guys reconciled within 24 hours. That is rare.
Like I said, he looks at me and I just can't help but smile.
You love him. You guys love each other. I'm so inspired by the both of you, and I'm so excited about your lives together. I think it's going to be amazing. Patrick, I can see why you hugged her. I just want to reach through right now. I just want to give you a big squeeze. You're a keeper. And I love the fact that you are living life on your terms, taking the journey on your terms. That journey continues to the day we die. We never stop asking questions. We never stop challenging. We never assume. Let's go out and let's just try to figure it out. Whatever that may be, wherever that may lead us, that's my encouragement to both of you. Okay? I just say that as a friend. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Yes.
When's the wedding? Do you have a date yet, or are we just sort of waiting till the COVID thing goes away?
It is. We had a date. It's everything going on is just. We just got an email saying, the number of people is going to be way lower than what
Yeah.
We're
We're only allowed to have 40 people now, so we're like, well, maybe we don't know we're doing it.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's a weird situation. Every day the headlines change, and they're like, well, when does society get back to normal, and what does that normal look like, and what does that mean for us? Ultimately, I'm glad you have each other. It's an honor to have been able to speak.
I'll probably come my address twice, so that's fine.
I missed it. I'm sorry. Say it again for me, Christabella.
I was saying my thing is it sucks, but I'll probably get to wear my dress twice, so I'm not going to complain.
Do you already have the dress, or have you picked it out?
Yeah, I have it.
Good for you both. It's awesome. You two inspire me, and I've enjoyed so much being able to hang out and talk with you. So whenever that date happens, congratulations. Until then, I'm so glad you have each other, and thanks for talking to me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter for a complete archive of podcasts and videos, products like mugs and t-shirts featuring the Thinking Atheist logo, links to atheist pages and resources, and details on upcoming free thought events and conventions. Log on to our website, thethinkingatheist.com.
By the way, you can still get your autographed pre-order of my new book, Confessions of a Former Fox News Christian. Just log on to my website, all the details, a free listen of the book's introduction, autograph instructions, and the pre-order link are at sethandrews.com.